Hello everyone, welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Meg, and today I'm going to be taking you guys through some June gardening tasks and kind of playing a little bit of catch up in my garden. I'm a little bit behind, and I know you're probably going to look at my garden and be like, girl, what? You are not behind. Your garden is thriving, and it is, but I'm a little bit behind on a few things. I'm a little bit behind of like my own plans that I had set for my garden for myself, if that makes sense. For instance, usually I am over flooded with cucumbers at this point in the year, and I am so behind on the cucumber game. I didn't plant my cucumbers until like a few weeks ago, to be honest, but it's okay. Here in North Carolina, zone 8A, we are fortunately blessed with a really long growing season. So even though I feel behind, I'm not behind. And I'm here to say that you are not behind either. Also, if you want to start a garden, but you haven't started a garden yet, and you're thinking like, am I too late? Am I too behind to start a garden this year? You're not. You can still start a garden this year. June is like prime time for gardening and starting a garden and everything in between, and I'll be talking a little bit about that as well as we go through the tasks. So I'm going to take you guys along with me and do some garden tasks and also do some planting. I'm going to be showing you what I'm planting. Because I'm a little bit behind, this is probably not going to be a one-day thing. This is probably going to span out over several days, especially since I can pretty much only film and work out in the garden in the evenings now. It's just too hot in the middle of the day. If I try to come out here in the middle of the day, my camera overheats, I overheat. I have to go inside every like 20 minutes and it's just miserable. So I can only film like past 4 o'clock. And with that, let's get started because I'm losing daylight already. So the first task I'm going to be doing is flipping some of the spring beds into summer beds. So I have a few beds throughout the garden that I just recently harvested all of my spring stuff out of. Like this was full of cabbages and lettuce and snap peas, and all of that's gone now because it's too hot. So I need to amend this soil and prep it for planting some summer stuff. I have my garlic bed as well that I've got to prep. I've got my potato bed. I just harvested all of those in my last video, all of my garlic. And I have a bed full of fava beans, and they do not look the best, and they're ready to be harvested and pulled out, and I kind of need to figure out what I'm going to do with that bed as well. So doing a little bit of crop rotation. Spring stuff is out, summer stuff is in, so I'm going to be just amending the soil, making sure the soil is ready to grow new things because a lot of the nutrition is probably gone from all of the spring stuff. What I would usually do is just top up the beds with compost and call it a day, but I'm kind of out of compost. I used all of my compost, like my own compost and some compost that I purchased from a local company. I used all of that up in the spring. So I don't have any compost, and instead of getting new compost, I have some raised bed soil that I just used to fill up a new garden bed, and I have like 8 extra bags of that. I bought way too much, so I think I'm just gonna top up with the raised bed soil. It's gonna be the same concept as compost. We're just adding nutrition back into the soil. This is a local organic raised bed mix that I really like. It's called Carolina Gold, and it has nutrition in that raised bed mix. So it's pretty much just gonna act just like compost. So I'm just gonna be removing the irrigation, topping up the beds with that, just adding like an inch or two, nothing too crazy. And if the bed has lost a little bit of soil, just kind of replenishing that and bringing the soil level back up. Once I add that soil, it should be totally ready to be planted for the summer. If you're somebody that's still wanting to start a garden this year, you're a little bit pressed for time, but a really quick way that you can start a new garden bed is 1, get the garden bed, 2, fill it with soil, something like a raised bed mix, which is super easy, or even potting soil. Like I've filled beds with just potting soil before and it's been fine. If you want to go the fancier route, I really like Mel's Mix, which is a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio of peat moss, vermiculite, and compost. That is kind of a more expensive route to go, and it's a lot more work because you have to mix that yourself, but it is a really good mix, and a lot of my beds do have Mel Mix in them, and I do notice that the ones that have Mel Mix, they definitely outperform the ones that have raised bed mix, but it's not a huge difference. The beds that are filled with raised bed mix, they do absolutely fine. If you're wanting to start a garden, just get the bed, fill it with like a raised bed mix, plant your stuff, and then I'll talk about mulching a little bit later. Once I get all of these beds prepped, I'm actually not sure what I want to plant in them. I think I'm gonna have to sleep on it and maybe come back to that tomorrow and just move on to some other small chores, get those out of the way. I know all the things that I still need to plant, I just don't know where I want to plant them and how I want to do it. One task that I just got done really quickly was just putting some of these mesh bags over my grapes to protect them. My grapevine is about 3 years old this year, I think, and last year it gave me a lot of grapes, but this year it's giving me even more grapes, and I really want to protect them because I want to try to make some wine out of them. Last year I didn't have quite enough grapes to make wine, but I made grape jelly, which was really delicious because these are Concord grapes, so that grape jelly was so good. I like these little bags because you can pretty much just enclose them around your grapes, and that prevents any bugs getting to your grapes, because as they're growing and as they're ripening and as they start letting out that really sweet smell, it attracts all the bugs to it, and I don't want any bugs ruining my precious grape harvest this year, and these mesh bags work really, really well. It's kind of tricky because the way that some of the clusters are growing, I can't really get a bag around them, so some of them are gonna have to go bagless, and I'm just gonna have to hope that the bugs don't get to them, but I bagged all of them that I possibly could. I'll put the link to these bags in the description. They're pretty cheap, they're reusable. I think these are on like their 3rd year, and I don't just use them for grapes. You can use them for pretty much anything. I'll use them for on my fruit trees as well to like protect my peaches and my nectarines, especially when they are really close to harvest and they're attracting all the bugs. I've seen people use them when they're trying to collect seeds as well to like prevent cross-pollination. You can you put a bag over a flower that you don't want to get cross-pollinated, so that's just another use for them. The next task is staking, especially these tomatoes. I should have staked these way earlier. They're starting to grow kind of like all curly on me, but I need to prop them up. These are all my dwarf indeterminate tomatoes. I'm really excited. I'm trialing them out this year. I'm trying to find my favorite dwarf varieties. If you haven't seen my dwarf tomato video, go and watch it. These tomatoes, since they're dwarf and I don't expect them to grow very tall, they usually cap out around 5 feet or so. I'm just using a simple 5-foot stake. I usually use a wooden stake, but I have these other stakes. I don't really remember what these are made out of. As I'm staking these tomatoes, I'm also doing a little bit of pruning, especially these lower leaves that are touching the soil. It's never good to have leaves touch the soil. That's how they can get diseases and stuff. I'm probably gonna do a whole separate video on pruning, but for now, just know that I'm giving them a good prune. And when I'm tying my tomatoes to the stake, I'm just making sure to leave lots of room. I'm not tying them tightly to the pole. I'm making sure that there's room for that tomato plant to grow. I'm also gonna walk around the garden and just make sure that anything else that could blow over in a storm is staked really well, because here in North Carolina, we have these crazy afternoon storms that'll just come through with crazy wind gusts, super high winds, and they'll just completely destroy your garden if you don't have everything staked properly. I'm always making sure that my sunflowers are staked, you know, my tall flowers like my dahlias, my zinnias. I even make sure that my peppers or my eggplants are either staked or they have a cage around them. Just the rule of thumb here is that anything that can be blown over, just stake it, tie it with twine, get prepared, because most of the time I'm like so unprepared. I'll be like, oh, I have plenty of time to make sure everything is staked, and then a storm will just come out of nowhere because we never really get any warning with these storms. Sometimes they won't even be on the radar or on the weather at all. They'll just come through totally out of the blue and just catch me off guard. So this year, that's not happening. I'm being prepared. Now that I got all these tomatoes staked, the next task is to fertilize them. Everyone has different ways that they fertilize. Some people, they amend with compost before the season starts and they don't use any fertilizers throughout the season, and that's great. I like to do both. I like to amend with compost early in the season, and then around June, around this time when everything is just really working hard to grow and everything is pumping out fruit at this time and it's just really working hard, I just like to give my plants a little bit of a boost. I like to use something gentle, like an organic fertilizer. Those are always gentle, They don't run the risk of burning your roots, which can be really detrimental to plants if that ends up happening. More just like a little snack for your plants throughout the season, just to add a little bit more support for them. If you're somebody that plants really densely like me, like you can see with these tomatoes, I planted them really densely. I like to make the most out of my space and just kind of crowd things together. And since I'm crowding things together, I don't want them competing for nutrients. So that's another reason that I like to fertilize. There's a few fertilizers that I really love, and honestly, any organic fertilizer is gonna be just fine. But just a few of my favorite brands are Dr. Earth's. That's a little bit pricey. I mean, most organic fertilizers are gonna be pricey. Dr. Earth's is really good. I also really like Garden Tone. That's what I have today. And that is just a really well-balanced fertilizer, and you can use it for the entire garden. For a tomato fertilizer specifically, I really like the brand Big Ass Tomatoes. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. It's a really great fertilizer as well. And there's another one called Mater Magic, and I like to use that when I'm planting my tomatoes. I don't necessarily use it after that, but that's another good one as well. These are gonna be your slow release granular fertilizers. So you're just going to simply work them in the soil around the base of the plant. Don't get right up on the plant, kind of go out in like a circular perimeter just away from the base a little bit. And they're granules, so they're gonna slowly release their nutrients into the soil, and the roots are gonna uptake that over time. If you want a more instant fertilizer, say you have some plants that look like they're struggling and they look like they need nutrients, I really like to use a liquid fertilizer, and my favorite for that is Dr. Neptunes. Not Dr. Neptunes, Neptunes Harvest. Neptunes Harvest is a great brand. I absolutely love it, and they have many different fertilizers, and they're usually with seaweed or with fish, and they're concentrated, so you can mix those with water and water the plants with them. Those nutrients are gonna get to those roots ASAP, directly to the roots, and it can give your plants a little bit more of like an instant boost. You can also use those as a foliar spray. I really like to use them as foliar sprays just whenever I can remember to do it, or whenever I feel like doing it. I'll do it, and I feel like that just kind of keeps everything really green and healthy. And you just you spray that directly onto the plant either in the morning or the evening. And with foliar feeding, some of those nutrients are going to be absorbed through the leaves. Not all of them, but some of them. I feel like that's more for just like aesthetics. I think a foliar feed is just to keep everything really green and healthy looking and kind of aesthetic. I know that was a lot and probably a little bit confusing, so here's my fertilizing schedule throughout the summer. Once a month, I like to do the granular fertilizer. Once a month, once every 6 weeks, honestly, just whenever I can like remember to do it. And then I just use the liquid and the foliar kind of like as a supplemental thing. If I notice a plant doesn't look the best, I'll hit it with some of that so that I know that it's instant. And I'll just do a foliar feed, I don't know, once every 2 months or whenever I can remember to do it. Sometimes I can do it every month, but yeah. And with when I'm spraying, I like to use like a spray backpack. It's typically used to spray pesticides, but I'll never be spraying those in my garden. It's always, if you see me walking around with a backpack in my garden, it's always just full of fish fertilizer. But yeah, I'm a little bit behind on fertilizing. I haven't really fertilized since I added compost in the spring and I transplanted everything, so it's time. Hello, I'm back. It's a new day. I don't have much time until the sun goes down, but my agenda is to hopefully finish my garden chores today. I actually already did one. I forgot to film it, but it was a really simple one. It was just deadheading my flowers. Deadheading your flowers is as simple as it sounds. It's just off with their heads. A flower's main goal is just to produce seeds and to spread itself. So once a plant began blooming, those blooms get pollinated and they start creating seeds, they don't really have a reason to flower anymore. So they'll start slowing down or just stop blooming altogether. So in order to encourage them to keep blooming, you just remove the blooms so that they can't make those seeds. So I'm doing all of that with my flowers that are currently in bloom, because keep in mind that flowers do have seasons that they bloom in. Some of them only bloom in spring, some only bloom in summer. some spring, summer, some summer, fall, some all 4 of the seasons. So it just depends on the flower. And deadheading really only helps to encourage those blooms if it's that specific season for that specific flower. With a lot of my flowers in the garden, they're edible. So harvesting their flower heads is pretty much just deadheading. Like my calendula, I collect calendula every day to dry it out to make calendula salve. My chamomile, I'm collecting that every day to dry it out for tea. I've already gone around and done that for the day. Now what I have on the agenda is to plant my beds that I just flipped, and then to finally just mulch everything. I did sleep on it, and I think I know what I'm gonna plant where. This bed, I think I've decided I'm just gonna fill this baby up with corn. I think I'm gonna plant an entire patch of corn here. I'm really hopeful for my corn growing abilities this year because I'm not the best at growing corn. I've never had that much luck. I think the best corn I ever grew was my very first year when I really had no idea what I was doing, and it was kind of like I just planted it and I left it alone and it was the best. And then the second year I kind of paid a little more attention to it and it did worse. Also, we had some windstorms that kind of blew it over. So what I'm planning for this is I'm going to plant this whole thing with corn, and then I'm going to put stakes on each side of, or each corner of this square bed, and run twine around the stakes, kind of to make like an enclosure for the corn. So when we have crazy storms that come through, it'll just kind of contain it to the bed, and that way I won't have to stake every single corn plant. I hope that made sense. I'm gonna do a few different varieties of corn. There's this variety from Birdies Seeds that I'm really excited about. It's like ultraviolet purple something corn, and it's a sweet corn, but the kernels are really beautiful and they're this deep purple, and I'm really excited to grow that one and see how that goes. This little round bed that my potatoes were in, I think I'm gonna put my peanuts in here. This is a smaller bed that I used for my peanuts last year, but I'm not really growing peanuts for anything special. Like, it just takes so many peanuts to make peanut butter, so that's not really my goal with growing peanuts this year. I'm gonna grow peanuts more to top things with it. I like to make a lot of Asian dishes with peanuts, maybe make some peanut sauce where it's not as concentrated and you don't need that many peanuts. And also, I just kind of really like growing them. I think they're really fun crop to grow, and yeah, so, and I haven't planted them yet. I'm kind of really behind on that, but peanuts need 5 months, and we still have 5 months of like frost-free growing conditions. So even though I feel behind, again, I'm not behind. I have plenty of time still. So I'm gonna get those in the ground today as well. The variety of peanut I like to grow that I grew last year is called Fastigiata Pinstriped. If you wanna know more about growing peanuts and you wanna see me make my very own peanut butter from the peanuts that I harvested last year, I have a video on that, so go check it out. In this bed, I already have a loofah gourd vine that's kind of trailing up over this trellis, but I think I'm gonna put just some more cucumbers, and I have a few cantaloupe starts that I got from my local garden center. I think I'm gonna put those on there as well, so just like cucumber, cantaloupe. The rest of the bed, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna leave it empty until July, and then I'm gonna plant some squash and zucchini in here because I'm trying this year to wait until July to plant those, to kind of wait for the squash vine borer to be done and out of here before planting them. So I think I'm gonna leave this open for that. I'm gonna go ahead and get some things started on this trellis. On the other side over there, I have cucumber and cantaloupe as well. So if you're starting a new garden from scratch, like say you just got a garden bed put together, you just got it filled and you wanna start some things. Some things I would go ahead and buy from your local garden center as established starts. Other things you can direct sow, like the things that I'm direct sowing, the peanuts, the corn, the cucumber, cantaloupe, watermelon, okra, squash, zucchini, kind of a last call for any kind of winter squash or pumpkins, zinnias, nasturtiums, herbs. Those are things that you can still direct sow right now here in Zone 8A. But the things that I would purchase as starts from your garden center are your things like your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, Those are the kind of things that just take a little bit longer to get going, and starting them from seed right now, they probably wouldn't really reach maturity. You wouldn't get a great harvest off of them. So it's best just to start from starts with those. If you want, you can just start with starts for everything. Just go to your local garden center, have them load you up, bring it back, and start your garden. There's absolutely no shame in not starting from seeds. I hate when people, especially other gardeners or gardening content creators, I hate when they shame people for not starting their garden from seed. Not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone has the capabilities to do that. Not everyone has the setup to do that. Like, why shame people? I don't get that. I'm a longtime gardener and I still start things from starts. I like to support my local garden center. And if there's something that they're growing that takes that burden off of me, I will buy it from them. I really only start the things from seed that my local garden centers don't carry that I want to grow. Seed starting is not my favorite thing to do. It's one of those things that I actually really hate to do. If there was a garden center out there that had absolutely everything that I wanted to grow, I would be buying the starts instead of starting seeds. That's just me. The last chore of the day, it's a pretty big one. I have like 2 hours of sunlight left, so hopefully I can get it done in 2 hours, but it is mulching. May not be able to get every single bed mulched, but I'm gonna focus on the ones that don't have irrigation hooked up to them. This is a pretty new bed that I made this year, and it's just kind of like a random flower mix. There's like echinacea, lavender, salvia. There's a bunch of sunflowers that I randomly kind of planted that are coming up. There's some zinnias in here. It's a flower bed. I just threw a bunch of flowers in here. It is not hooked up to irrigation because I haven't done it yet. Really behind on the mulching. Ideally, I would have mulched all of my beds when my plants were very young and they hadn't grown this tall yet. It's gonna be a pain to go around now and mulch just because the plants are very tall. So I may not mulch every bed, but this one still looks a little manageable. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mulch it. Mulch does a few things. So it kind of protects the soil against rain, erosion, things like that. It also keeps the soil really cool so it doesn't dry out as quickly, so there's less watering if you mulch properly. It's a good thing to do. It's something that I do every single year, especially when it starts heating up and the plants are needing more water. It really does help with having to water less. There's all kinds of different things you can use to mulch, and it's just up to personal preference. My personal preference is wheat straw, this here. So it's just like chopped up wheat straw. That's it. I like this because it's very compostable. It decomposes quicker than wood chips, and I feel that it kind of improves my soil. Wood chips is another good option if you can't get your hands on some wheat straw. There's a few different places that I like to get wheat straw. I got this huge bag from Tractor Supply. I think it was like, I don't know, I can't remember the price. I think maybe 30 bucks for this whole bag, which is not bad. Another brand I really like is Garden Straw, and Epic Gardening sells that. It is a little pricey. It's pretty pricey, but it is a bit higher quality than this one from Tractor Supply because this one has quite a few wheat seeds in it. So a few weeks after I put this mulch down, the wheat seeds are gonna be germinating, so it's kind of a pain because you have to go and pull all the wheat seeds out, but it's not that hard. I mean, I don't know, I don't mind it, but there's people out there that really would mind doing that. Garden Straw brand, every time I've used that one, I've never had any wheat seeds pop up, or if I have, it's like very few, but in this brand, there are quite a few wheat seeds that are gonna pop up. But it's cheaper and it's easier for me to get because there's a Tractor Supply here like every 10 miles or something like that. Everywhere you look, there's a Tractor Supply here. You can also use hemp bedding to mulch your plants, which is something that I really want to try. I used hemp bedding in my chicken coop and I really like it for the chicken coop. And I've seen a lot of people using it for mulch, but again, that's another pretty pricey option because hemp bedding or mulch is not cheap. But hemp is really sustainable. It's another thing that can improve the quality of your soil, and it will decompose in your soil really easily. We're finally done. I can tell that summer is coming because it's 7 o'clock. Sun is about to go down and I'm still sweating. It is still hot and sticky and muggy out here, and summer's coming. But I feel so much better about the garden now that I got some of those chores out of the way, and I feel like I can finally just take a breather, sit back, and like watch everything grow now, just until I have to do all of these chores again. Thank you guys for coming along with me, and if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like it, because there will be more videos like it, then make sure to subscribe. Drop a comment. Let me know what chores you're doing in the garden this month and what you're planting this month. I will, of course, keep you guys updated. I'm planning on doing a full garden tour very, very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!